The All-Star break is over. The latter part of the NBA season is upon us with the playoffs fast approaching. I have some hot takes about the second half, really the second, third, or third. I don't know. The end of the season in the NBA and what I think different teams are going to do as we head into the playoffs and approach the first round. Uh, I think we should get into those. So without further ado, let's get into it. I want to thank each and every one of you listening to or watching this episode of Lots of Thoughts, a sports podcast. Your support means the world to me. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel. Click the bell to get notified whenever we upload a new video. If you're listening on an audio platform, rate us 5 stars wherever you're listening. Tell your friends. Head over to YouTube and give us a sub over there too. I really appreciate it. We're fast approaching 100 subscribers on YouTube, so that's exciting. I really appreciate the support on all the platforms. Instagram as well has been getting some good engagement on the recent reels about the MLB's pitch clock and rule changes. So if you're not following over there, we're at Lots of Thoughts Sports. Same thing on TikTok, on Twitter at LOT Sports Pod, on YouTube at Lots of Thoughts Sports, on Facebook at Lots of Thoughts Sports. You can visit our website, lotsofthoughts.godaddysite.com. There you can access the podcast, the socials, the merchandise, the newsletter, all via that website, lotsofthoughts.godaddysite.com. All these links are in the description on YouTube or the show notes on any audio platform. So the All-Star break is over. We're starting some games up, restarting the back half of the season. We call it the half of the season, but most teams have gone through about 60 games out of the 82. So it's really, the last quarter, I guess, if you will, of the season. And I've got some takes. I think there's a lot of potential movement. Still, the standings are very close as we sit right now in the Eastern Conference between the 3 seed and the 6th seed. It's only 5 games between the 3 seed and even the 9th seed is only 10 games. In the Western Conference, it's all bunched up. You got the Nuggets at the 1st seed, and the Grizzlies are 5.5 back. Kings are 7 back. Suns are 10. Clippers 10.5. Mavericks 11. Warriors 11.5. Jazz 12. Timberwolves and Pelicans 12.5. Trailblazers 13. Lakers 13.5, and Thunder 14 back. So all within 4 games from the 4 seed to the 13th seed. And that's what makes this part of the year incredible. So I've got 5 hot takes. You're free to disagree with me. These are not predictions. These are things I think could happen, but have a high likelihood not to happen. They're hot takes. I'm not a big hot take guy. If you followed this channel, I'm pretty honest with how I feel. I'm not going to say anything to get views. I might have takes that are out there, especially about my teams, because I overwhelmingly support them, even when I shouldn't. But these are takes that I think are probably not what I'd bet on, but I think I could see happening. I'm trying to figure out which order I should work in. Okay. First of all, I'm going to bounce. Yeah, I'll bounce between the East and the West. So first of all, we'll start with the Grizzlies. I think they're currently in the 2 seed, like I mentioned, 5.5 games back of the Nuggets, a game and a half up on the Kings and the 3 seed. Kings, by the way, resurgent. I'm not going to talk about them today, but their rise has been incredible. They're fun to watch. Sacramento deserves playoff basketball. But back to the point. The Grizzlies, my first hot take. The Grizzlies will secure the 2nd seed, but get bounced in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Here's why I say that. I think they're a talented regular season team. John Morant is an incredible talent. He's got stars. I don't know if I'd call him stars. He's got really, really good role players around him, whether it's Desmond Bane, whether it's Dylan Brooks, whether it's Steven Adams, all the way through. That roster has some depth, has some talent, all the way down to rookies and young guys really contributing, like Santi Aldama. And, they've got a lot of talent. Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year. But at the end of the day, I need to see them perform in the playoffs. And when there's a West that's this close, where there's going to be, if there's a 2nd seed, they're going to go against the 7 in round 1, right? And as of right now, the play-in teams are the Warriors, the Jazz, the Timberwolves, and the Pelicans, with the Mavericks just ahead of them and the Clippers just ahead of them. So in all reality, out of the Warriors, Mavericks, and Clippers, at least one of them is going to be in the play-in. And then that doesn't even include the Timberwolves, who I think are dangerous, as Anthony Edwards continues to show that he's taking a step to being able to be the lead guy on a playoff team. And Mike Conley fits in there. And the Pelicans hopefully get healthy and Zion Williamson comes back. And the Jazz, I don't necessarily believe in them, but nonetheless, the Trailblazers, get some stellar performances out of Damian Lillard, including 70 the other night. There's a lot of dangerous teams on the bottom of the Western Conference playoff picture. And teams that I frankly believe in more than the Grizzlies. If I'm seeing a first-round matchup between the Clippers and the Grizzlies, I'm taking the Clippers. If I see a first-round matchup between the Mavericks and the Grizzlies, I'm taking the Mavericks. If I see a first-round matchup between the Warriors and the Grizzlies, I'm probably taking the Warriors. And I know that probably requires Steph Curry to be healthy, but even so, I think they're a tough team to beat. And if Curry's healthy and he's making shots, I think they're tough to beat in the West at all. So are the Grizzlies a good team? Yes. Yes, they're a very good team. They're very deserving of that second seed. But my hot take here is that they get that second seed. They get bounced to the first round by one of these teams like the Warriors, who's going to make the play-in, going to win the play-in, and have a very good shot to upset the Grizzlies in round one. All right, let me know what you think about the Grizzlies and their playoff chances in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on an audio platform. Let me know. Go over to one of the socials and comment, or the YouTube video. Go over there and comment. Let me know what you think about the Grizzlies' chances. I don't know. That's just my opinion. We're going to go to the Eastern Conference now. I'm going to talk about the Hawks. Hawks recently made a coaching change. They fired Nate McMillan. They hired Quinn Snyder. Quinn Snyder hasn't fully taken over the role yet. I don't even know if he's officially signed as I record this. 10:14 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on February 27th, 2023. But I think he's a significantly better coach, not only for this team, but overall than Nate McMillan. And I think Nate McMillan was what the Hawks needed when they fired, who was a Lloyd Pierce, I believe, just a few years ago. But I think his voice has grown stale. I think that's a locker room that has chemistry issues. And I think if there's someone who's proven he can handle chemistry issues, it's Quinn Snyder. Because we remember back with the Utah Jazz, with Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, there were rumors that they didn't like each other. Heavy and hard rumors. And then you had the whole COVID situation. When COVID first started, Rudy had it. Gobert ended up touching the microphones at a press conference as a joke. And there was some real division between him and Donovan Mitchell in that locker room, already having division from a basketball perspective, but from a personal perspective. And Quinn Snyder was able to manage those egos. And maybe they didn't make any deep playoff runs, but the roster itself wasn't as talented as it really could have been had they maximized assets. They overpaid Rudy. But nonetheless, he was able to keep them strong throughout a long regular seasons. And so that's why my hot take here is that the Hawks secure the 5th seed and win a playoff series. So as they are right now, the Hawks are the 8th seed. They're 13 games back of the first place Celtics. But right now, of the 5th seed, they are just 3.5 games back. Of course, that would mean leaping over the Heat, leaping over the Knicks, and leaping over the Nets. Now, the Nets, as a Nets fan, I'm usually positive about my team. I don't believe in their success this year. I think they made good moves. Well, assuming they had to get rid of Durant and Irving, I think they made good trades there. I think they could have traded away other pieces like Seth Curry, like Royce O'Neal, like Joe Harris. But nonetheless, I think they're set up for next year and, developing as an overall team and as a defense, especially. And their offense needs incredible work as well. But I don't believe in their offense this year. I don't believe in it being enough to keep a playoff spot. I believe they drop into the play-in. Maybe they end up like the 8th or 9th seed when all is said and done. The Knicks, I think, could rival for that spot. But if I'm taking someone to rise up, I'm taking the Hawks over the Knicks. And the Heat, I'll talk about them in a little bit. I have a take about them as well. So that would mean the Hawks will move up to the 5th seed. And I think they have a really, really, really good chance to match up against the Cavaliers. We're looking at the guard matchup here. You look at two teams whose offense is built around guard play and vertical spacing, right? So you have Trae Young and DeJounte Murray in Atlanta. And then, of course, in Cleveland, you have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, two teams that traded for guards in the offseason and gave up quite a few assets for that. But the vertical spacing is another thing as well with the Hawks, with John Collins and Clint Capella, and, of course, with the Cavs, with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. These teams have high flyers, guys that are able to be dump-off options, alley-oop options when the offense isn't flowing. And I think they match up quite well against each other. I think this is going to be a situation of who's best comes out in the playoff series, because if one team is at their best and the other one isn't, they're going to win that series, in my opinion. I think they're two very evenly matched teams. I think Trae Young is a better player than Donovan Mitchell, but can also be exposed defensively. I think really both sides, both pairs of guards could be exposed defensively. I shouldn't say that about DeJounte Murray. He's obviously an excellent defender, but given that Trae Young is so bad defensively, and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell aren't great defensively, even though the rest of their teams tend to be very good offensive or defensively, including guys like DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley and such. I think that the two guard matchups are going to be the key here. And I'm taking Trae Young over Donovan Mitchell, and I'm probably taking DeJounte Murray over Darius Garland. It's close. That one's a lot closer, but that's what I think is going to be the key here. So I definitely could see the Hawks upsetting the Cavs. I think the bigger challenge is getting up to the 5 seed, because if they're the 6 seed, I'm not taking them to beat the 76ers. If they're the 7 seed, I'm not taking them to beat the Bucks. And if they're the 8 seed, I'm certainly not taking them to beat the Celtics. No way in the world. So they have to get up to that 5th seed to really make a run, and I think that they could do it. And so that's my hot take. The Hawks end up securing the 5th seed, and they win a playoff series. Back to the Western Conference. The Phoenix Suns currently sit at the 4 seed. They are 10 games back of the Nuggets, but their standing is not what I'm going to be talking about here. The Suns have been horrible when it comes to 3-point percentage since the trade to acquire Kevin Durant. And that, a large part of that is that they gave up Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson to, I won't say elite. Mikal Bridges is a very good 3-point shooter, and Cam Johnson is an elite 3-point shooter. Guys that can make their own shot, take their own shot, or are one of the two of the best catch and shoot guys in the league, in my opinion. And I'm not just saying that because they're on Brooklyn. I would have said this a few months ago with them being with the Suns. And of course, Jay Crowder's not there, although he didn't play a pivotal role with the Suns, or any role for that matter with the Suns this season. But he did play a pivotal role in years past and is that 3-point guy. Chris Paul has obviously taken a little bit of a step back, but the 3-point percentage hasn't been great. Cam Payne hasn't been the same 3-point shooter since a few years ago. Devin Booker has been elite in that category, but nonetheless, they've got some depth that hasn't shot as well. And so I think they make one key depth signing, and that's Carmelo Anthony. I think Carmelo Anthony, he shot, I believe, 37.5% from 3 last season he played with the Lakers. And I think he could be a good addition for them. Guy who's coming off the bench, a veteran presence, another veteran on this team, to take a shot when Kevin Durant and Chris Paul and Devin Booker are not shooting well or are not on the court. And that's very rare that that's going to happen, but he's going to be a punch of offense that I think they need. So I think this is my full hot take. I think the Suns sign Carmelo Anthony and look unbeatable through the rest of the season. Kevin Durant's supposed to be back relatively soon, I think in 1 or 2 games, if I'm not mistaken. And that team's going to be incredibly high functioning. I mean, I don't have their depth chart up, but I'm going to pull it up just for the fun of it. When you acquire a guy like Kevin Durant, who's a top 5 NBA player, you have to give up some depth. But the depth that they have, I think, is enough to survive. And I think Carmelo Anthony will be a good piece for that. So, of course, they have Cam Payne. I mentioned Devin Booker. Damian Lee off the bench, I think, is a good piece. Torrey Craig, I think, is going to start for them. But they still have guys like Terrence Ross, guys like TJ Warren, Ish Wainwright, Josh Okogie has been decent for them. Jock Landale has been good enough for them. Saban Lee, who I didn't mention, Bismack Biyombo. They've got decent enough depth. And so I think if you slot KD into that starting lineup, you bring Carmelo Anthony in off the bench, I think that'll be an offensive boost that team needs. A team that's not going to be defensive focused, but you knew that when you acquired Kevin Durant. Not that Kevin Durant's a bad defensive player. He's a very good defensive player, but the team gave up 2 impact defenders in Bridges and Johnson in the Twins. And so they're going to be an offensive force, and I think they're going to look unbeatable. I don't know what that looks like. They have right about 20 games left. Let me see. They are 33-29. So that would be 62 games. So they've got 20 games left. I'd say they probably go 18-2, 17-3, something like that. And they look incredible and look ready to go. I don't know where that gets them in the standings. Maybe it's the 3 seed, 4 seed. I don't see them dropping below that, but I think they look unbeatable throughout the rest of the season. But the real hot take is that they signed Carmelo Anthony. But, I'm combining them to give it an even hotter take, if you will. Back to the Western Conference we go. No, back to the Eastern Conference we go. The Suns are in the West. What am I saying? So I said I had a take about the Heat, and that's where we are. Here's my take, and I'll defend it afterward. I'm not going to give the reasoning beforehand. I think the Heat will finish between the 6th and the 8th seed after the play-in, get bounced in the first round. And the key part here, rebuild rumors will swirl focused on Jimmy Butler. Listen, I'm not an NBA rumor guy, right? I see rumors, I take them with a grain of salt. But when there's a rumor about a star wanting a trade, there's always some eyebrow raising, right? Because that's something that could be an indication of something more. NBA stars, more than anybody else, like to leak things to the media, and whether it's to reporters, whether it's to guys that are sort of these outside sources, they like to leak things just to get the ball rolling. And I think Jimmy Butler had a great game tonight, and I don't think that they're going to trade him. I really, really don't think they're going to trade him. But this is a hot take. And so as they stand right now, let's talk about the season. As they stand right now, they're the 7th seed. It's right about where I feel they should be. The roster has some major holes, PJ Tucker-sized holes, if you will. And I don't think Kevin Love's going to fill them. 33-29. They are 11 and a half games back of the 1st seed. And it's interesting. I just said that they're the 7th seed, and it's funny to see the dichotomy between the West and the East, because they're the 7th seed at 33-29. The Suns are the 4th seed at 33-29. The East is so deep, man. But nonetheless, I think the Heat are easily going to get bounced in the first round. I can't see them getting up to the 5 seed like I said the Hawks would. And if they have a first round matchup with the 76ers, I think that they have maybe a 10% chance of winning. 15%. Maybe I'll give them that. If they have a first round matchup against the Bucks or the Celtics, I just can't see a world where they win that series. Absolutely can't. And so when you don't have a chance in a series like that, when I feel you're going to really get obliterated, if you end up the 7th or 8th seed against a team like the Celtics, because I don't think anyone's going to be able to control Tatum, handle Tatum, defend Tatum. If they have a matchup against the Bucks, I don't think anybody could handle Giannis. I think PJ Tucker was their best option for that, and he's obviously in Philly now. I think that there's a world where rumors will absolutely swirl. And hear me out. Jimmy Butler is a culture setter. He is the heart and soul of that team. If the team's going to rebuild, it starts with Jimmy Butler. If the team's going to reset, it starts with guys like Bam Adebayo. It starts with guys like Tyler Hero. I think you could trade one of those pieces and not go into a full rebuild. I think if you trade Jimmy Butler, you're tearing down. I'm not saying that the Heat should tear down, but I could easily see that being a path if they get wiped away, because they don't have a lot of financial solutions. Duncan Robinson's getting paid a lot of money. Tyler Hero is getting paid a lot of money. They have a lot of money dedicated to guys who are not making, Tyler Hero's making major contributions, but they have a lot of money tied into not as much production. I'm going to try to pull up their budget as I'm talking here. But the Heat's major issue is that their depth is no longer there like it once was. Kyle Lowry's getting paid a boatload of money to not produce. So here's their highest contracts for this season. You got Jimmy Butler making $37 million, and that's going to go up to 45, 48, and 52 over the next few seasons. Bam Adebayo's making 30. I think that's a fair contract. Kyle Lowry's making $28 million and $29 million next year. Duncan Robinson's getting $16 million, plus 18 next year, plus 19 the year after, plus a $19.8 million player option the year after. Victor Oladipo's got 8 on the books this year and 9.5 player option next year. Caleb Martin's getting 6.5. Tyler Hero's making 5.5, but his deal is going to kick in next year when he makes $27 million. So next year, let's take, assuming Victor Oladipo opts into that $9.5 million. Next year, they're going to have 45 dedicated to Jimmy, 32 dedicated to Bam, 30 dedicated to Kyle Lowry, 18 dedicated to Duncan Robinson, 9.5 to Victor Oladipo, nearly 7 to Caleb Martin, and 27 million dedicated to Tyler Hero. So that doesn't count guys that are going to be free agents like Udonis Haslem, not that he's contributing a whole lot, but like Kevin Love, like Max Strus, like Gabe Vincent, like Omar Yurtseven, like Cody Zeller. I'm not really going to discuss anyone else, but their depth has been neutralized in large ways, and you see that where they don't have anyone that really is that great playing power forward. Max Strus is not a power forward. Nikola Jovic is not ready to play power forward on a contending team. Kevin Love is not that guy anymore to be a starting caliber power forward in a team that wants to make a run. And so if your depth is neutralized, if you've got contracts that no one wants to take on, like Lowry, like Robinson, I think that there's a world where they decide that a reset is a good idea. And let's say a team like the Knicks calls, right? And I'll pull up the Knicks roster while I'm doing this. Let's see a team like the Knicks calls, who the Knicks have been looking for a star for years, right? They've developed good pieces, good ancillary pieces. I think Julius Randle is a good number 2 on a really good team, on a championship level team. I think Jalen Brunson may be a good number 2 as well, and he's certainly taken a step up in recent weeks. I think they have other pieces, whether it be Quentin Grimes, whether it be Miles McBride. Emmanuel Quickley has played well. Mitchell Robinson has been a very good defender. Jericho Sims has shown a little bit of promise. But really, the ascension of Jalen Brunson has made this an option for them. And it's why I could see a move being made. And then we look at Jimmy Butler, a guy who's coached under Tom Thibodeau for years in Chicago, who was coached under Tom Thibodeau in Minnesota, who is a Tom Thibodeau guy, right? You think of Tom Thibodeau, you think of all defense. You think of all heavy focus, playing your best guys heavy minutes, not trusting young guys. That's exactly what Jimmy Butler is. He's a come in early, leave late, clock in, clock out guy who's ready to give his all. He's a culture guy, and that's what the Heat have established. But if they're looking to tear down, I could easily see that trade being made. And if you're the Heat and you get a call, hey, the Knicks are willing to give up RJ Barrett. They're willing to give up Quentin Grimes, maybe Emmanuel Quickley. I don't know what that deal necessarily looks like. I'm going to be honest. Maybe Obi Toppin, a guy who's shown promise but hasn't really gotten real minutes in their rotation, and a good handful of picks. Maybe that's something. Maybe that's something the Heat do. Once again, I'm not saying they should do it. I'm not saying they will do it, but it could easily happen. I shouldn't say easily. It could happen. And I think that's what a hot take is, right? It's something that could happen, but is very unlikely to. And so is he going to get traded? Probably not. But I think those rumors could be swirling if they get eliminated early. I don't know if that's hot enough. Maybe my hot take should have been he gets traded, but I'm not gonna say that. A guy I didn't mention as well, Isaiah Hartenstein, has really played quality minutes at the backup center. But the Knicks are exactly the team for Jimmy Butler. I think he would shine on that New York stage, Madison Square Garden, bringing together guys. I think if they re-sign Josh Hart, which I think would be a good move for them, I could easily see a move being made. And Jimmy Butler, I think, is a perfect fit for that. And it elevates the Knicks to be one of those top contenders. There'd be the solid 4th seed right now in the East if they had Jimmy Butler on their roster. But nonetheless, that's my 4th hot take. The Heat finish 6th to 8th, get bounced in the first round, and rebuild rumors swirl around Jimmy Butler. My 5th and final hot take. Back to the Western Conference. The Los Angeles Lakers, they drop. They get a top 3 pick in the NBA draft, and it goes to the Pelicans. Now, the last part, obviously, is going to happen, right? Let me make sure that swap has no protections on it. But here's my thing. The Lakers, I think, are already not great. I think their trade to get Russell Westbrook out of there was one that was necessary, but didn't make them incredibly better. I think it gave them some solid role players. I think that's what D'Angelo Russell is. I think he's a really, really good role player. Maybe he's a good number 3 or a decent number 3 on a championship level team. But their top 2 stars have to be elite. I think Jared Vanderbilt, I've talked about, is a good pickup for them. I think Malik Beasley was a good pickup for them, despite the weird drama with Scottie Pippen Jr. being on the team while Malik Beasley is dating Larsa Pippen. That's a weird conversation. But I think that trade was good, but it's not a savior. And now with LeBron's foot injury, he's going to miss considerable time. That didn't look good against the Mavericks. I was surprised he continued in the game, which was a great game, by the way, between the Lakers and the Mavericks. But I don't think he's going to be good to go for most of the regular season left. I don't think Anthony Davis has been good enough to carry a team to the playoffs. They currently sit at the 12th seed. And while that's only a game out of the 10th seed to make the play-in, I easily could see them dropping just as much. And so if they drop, they're only a half a game ahead of the Thunder, right? If they drop to the 13th seed right now, so we assume they wouldn't get behind the Hornets or the Pistons in the Eastern Conference and the Spurs and the Rockets in the Western Conference. They could get behind the Magic, who are at 25 and 36. Of course, the Lakers are at 29 and 32. So just 4 games back there. They're also ahead of the Pacers in the East and the Bulls. But if they drop 4 games, they could easily be in the bottom 5. If they are there hasn't been a lot of lottery draft odds really being crazy, in my opinion. The Warriors had some pretty good odds to get the number 2 overall pick a few years ago, which they wasted on James Wiseman. But the 5th pick, I should say, the 5th worst team in the NBA, the 26th seed in the NBA, has a 10.5% chance for the first pick, a 10.5% chance for the second pick, and a 10.6% chance for the third pick. So you're telling me that, and a 10.5% chance for the 4th pick as well. You're telling me the Lakers couldn't have a 30, if they drop that far, couldn't have a 30% chance at a top 3 pick. It's not another question, right? 30% chance for a top 3 pick. That's 1 in 3, basically. So the question is whether they get down there. And if like I say, LeBron's injury keeps him out, I could see them dropping that low. As they sit right now, they have a 3% chance at the first seed. They have a 3.3% chance at the second and a 3.6% chance at the third. So really about a 10% chance overall for a top 3. But as they rise up, right? Let me just tell you the first pick odds. As they rise up, the next slot, that's a 5.2% chance. Next slot, 5.3. Next slot, 7.5. And now you're starting to get up there, 9. And then, of course, 10.5 at the 5th worst spot, like I mentioned. Those top three worst teams, that is, all have a 14% chance. All have even chances. Right now, that's Houston, San Antonio, and Detroit landing Victor Wembanyama. But I could easily see the Lakers getting right behind there, right behind Charlotte, ahead of Orlando, ahead of Indiana, ahead of Chicago, and that pick goes to New Orleans, which I think is something special, if I say so myself. Because you traded that pick in the Anthony Davis deal, and yeah, it got you a ring. But Anthony Davis was the complementing star to LeBron, right? That was something that they wanted to do to get a ring, and it was a good decision for both sides, in my opinion. And now the Pelicans luck into the first seed. If they could luck into a top 3 pick to get a guy, I mean, it's not going to be Scoot Henderson because he'll be gone 2nd overall, but it could be Scoot Henderson if they get the 2nd pick. A guy, who knows where the guy from is it Alabama that had the issues with gun violence. I'm not going to get into that story, but who knows if he drops out of that, or those pair of twins that are expected to go pretty high in the draft. It's not Victor Wembanyama. It's not Scoot Henderson, but it's going to be a top prospect if they end up at the 3rd spot. And I could easily see that happening if they end up dropping that far. And so that's why my hot take is the Lakers get a top 3 pick and it goes to the Pelicans. I just don't believe in the Lakers' success if LeBron spends considerable time out. Well, there's were my hot takes. Let me know if you agreed in the comments below. And if, like I said, if you're listening on a podcast platform, head over to the YouTube video, drop a comment below, let me know what you think, or head over to the Instagram and comment on the post there. That'll do it for this episode of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed. If you're interested in following us on any socials, the links are in the description on YouTube or in the show notes on a podcast app. Head over to our website, lotsofthoughts.godaddysite.com. Access the merchandise, the newsletter, the podcast, all the socials over there. I would really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the support you guys have given to this podcast, to the YouTube, to the socials, to everything. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening or watching this episode of Lots of Thoughts, a sports podcast. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful rest of your day.